The solution is something that it's hard to see from inside the four walls of one brand. But from our vantage point now with 750 brands, we can see these things that are, in the Henry Ford sense, not faster horses, but the car.
Yeah.
And solves the problem of getting you from point A to point B much faster, but it's a different solution than you would have had just thinking about, so I need it to go faster. I need this horse to run faster.
Hey guys, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It is ChatGTM. I am Michael Beck, and this is my co-host, Mr.
Chad Horn. What up, Beck?
We play with it. Sometimes introduce him, sometimes I don't. And we are here with Mr. Noah Glass for episode 18. Noah, thank you so much for joining us here on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So before we get going with you, I'm gonna toot a little bit of your horn that I found here on some data. And you can tell me if it's right or not. But relevant stats, right? And I talked to our friend GPT before I got on to see what it knew about you and could educate me a little bit more than what I thought I knew, because there's usually kind of a disconnect there. But this stuff is just, it makes me almost nervous to talk to you knowing this much good stuff's going on, honestly. This gentleman here founded a company that saw 21% growth year over year, hitting 76.1 million in Q4 2024. Gross merchandise volume processed 29 billion in GMV in 2024. Gross payment volume handled 2.8 billion in GPV in 2024. And 2025 projections, and you're going to help us understand that because the projections, because you probably just talked about this event you had. Expected revenue between $333 and $336 million. Holy smokes. Are you adopting anybody? That's my first question. Chad's got 4 kids. I got 2. I don't know what to do with them. No, I'm just kidding. That's so dang impressive, Noah. I ran you I think probably 15 years ago the first time. I was walking with Leah Segura, and you had commented something to her, and I go, "Who is that?" And she goes, "Oh, that's Noah. He's got an online ordering company." That was it, right? and now here you are. You've been on the NASDAQ, right? You've got I think I saw you pound the gavel once, right?
New York Stock Exchange.
I'm so sorry. So
yes.
sorry. Yep.
But yes, just over 4 years and almost a month ago.
So let's start out just a little bit of that. I know a lot of people know the story, or may not know the story of Noah Glass, but just shortly, how did you get started, and like what did that feel like? Because there's a lot of founders that listen, and people are going through this journey, and maybe share just a little bit about that, and maybe one nugget of, if you knew then what you know now, what would you have thought about?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been a 20-year journey. So I've felt all the feels during that time, I guess. And I could probably spend the entire podcast just answering this one question. But the origin story is that when I first moved to New York City, it was summer of 2003. I was just graduating college, moving into my first apartment in Manhattan. The only place that I could afford to move to was Wall Street, which might be counterintuitive to people, but that was actually in 2003 a really affordable place to live, because September 11th had happened a couple years earlier. There was a big push to get people to move back to that part of the city.
Got it.
A lot of grants from the city and the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation to move there and get subsidized funding from the city to move there. So I moved there with 3 of my best friends from college into an apartment literally on Wall Street. And I was going up, I don't know, about 3 miles by subway every day to work. And in the morning, I would try to stop and get a cup of coffee at the coffee shop in my building. And because it was Wall Street, it was all the people from my building and all the people who worked on Wall Street, every stockbroker out there, trying to get coffee at the same time. So it was this extreme version of peak ordering demand. And it was intensely frustrating to everybody, and certainly to me.
Yeah.
And I had worked inside of the restaurant industry in high school, I worked at first as a cashier and then as a pizza delivery driver. And I sort of knew what takeout and delivery were all about and some of the opportunities that existed for making that part of the business better for restaurants. And I was walking around weirdly as a 22-year-old in New York City with a PalmPilot, which was a very weird thing to have as a 22-year-old, but something that I was
that
fascinated
a flex
with.
back then? I'm trying to figure out, was that a flex?
No, I played lacrosse in college,
Yeah.
and I was also in an a cappella group in college. So I
Get
was
outta here.
traveling a lot, and it was like my way of organizing my calendar and having it with me all the time. But it's part of the Olo story because I had this thing that was really a precursor to smartphones. And I just became convinced without a shadow of a doubt that we were all going to have devices like this. And that device with software and web connectivity could become the way that I solved this problem of the long wait as a guest and the kind of broken throughput of the operations at the coffee shop. So the idea was basically, what if you could use this device or something like it to order and pay, send that order directly into the restaurant or the coffee shop, and then pick up your order without having to wait for it.
Got it.
So that was the idea. And then it sort of sat in my head for some time until 2004. I moved to Johannesburg, South Africa. I lived there for the entire year with my last company. And I met a couple of engineers who said, we can help to build that idea of yours into a working prototype. And we worked on that together, built a prototype, showed it to an investor. And that investor said, if you believe in this enough to quit your job and to withdraw your admission to Harvard Business School to go and pursue it, I will give you $500,000 to get this started. And it was an immediate just gut reaction, knee-jerk reaction from me that, yes, this is something I had to do. I had to go and pursue this because it was the right time in my life. And it was the right time in kind of the history of this technology wave where I was just convinced we were all about to have smartphones or something like smartphones.
That's funny you mentioned waves, though, because surfing is all about finding the right timing to catch the wave, right?
Yeah.
You have to paddle out at the right time. You have to be there at the right time.
That is right. And we were very, very early, launching officially in 2005, June 2005.
Right.
And I say that because only 5% of the population at that time had a smartphone. Everybody else that was using mobile phones was using a flip phone, the Motorola Razr, I think that sort of era of mobile phone. And so the idea was, how do we make something that enables this order ahead, pay ahead, skip the line experience, but that works for everybody? So we actually had to build backwards into a text message ordering version of the service in 2005.
Noah, I'm curious, how do you think about that now, so far distant? Do you feel like you were right on time or too early, but you managed to survive being too early? Like, how far off were you from that ideal point, do you think?
Yeah, I get that question a lot of like, was this too early, given that iPhone didn't even get announced until I think September of 2007, didn't even come to market until after that. Android hadn't come to market until after that. And so smartphones were still years away. I truly don't think that we could have built the business that we have built over these 20 years if we hadn't started right then.
Yeah.
Even in those earliest days, we still had competitors and people vying for share of the market. And in New York City, where we launched, a lot of that competition was not mobile ordering competitors, but it was the online ordering competitors and primarily Seamless Web, then Seamless, then part of Grubhub, that we were going up against and running into everywhere we went and tried to talk to restaurant owners about, here's why you should get excited about text message ordering.
Makes sense. So along the way, you've gone from, Olo has been, if you had to summarize it, different things along the journey, right? Earlier on, it had been online ordering. Now you're a complete platform. Can you break that journey down in terms of the evolution of what Olo actually has been over time?
Yeah, there were a couple of distinct phases in our journey. So launched in 2005, we were originally B2C as a service. So we were not a platform, a B2B platform for restaurant brands to build on top of. We were instead a consumer facing service, originally called MOBO, which was meant to be shorthand for mobile ordering. And originally with text message ordering, mobile web ordering, kind of basic web ordering. But that was the real intervention, was enabling text message and mobile ordering really as an industry first. We got a lot of press being here in the media capital of the world around this mobile ordering and specifically text message ordering capability. And some of that press led to restaurant brands outside of New York City saying, hey, we want to use this technology and we will tell our guests about it if you let us use the platform. And that really started us down this journey that ultimately led to, in 2009, 2010, switching our focus from being a B2C platform or B2C service really into being a B2B platform with a software as a service model. So the idea of that was, let's use the technology that we've built. Let's give it to restaurants so that they can give it to their guests, kind of B2B to C. And we'll do that so it's branded to look and feel like the restaurant's own website, and it integrates into their point of sale system. And the pricing is not a per transaction fee, but rather it's a flat fee per store per month. That really happened in earnest. We fully made that transition in 2010. And I remember really, I wouldn't mark our product market fit moment until really like August of 2013. So 8 years into our journey as a company, that's when I felt like we stayed very small and scrappy that whole first 8 years. We were about a 12-person company maximum during that time. And then at that moment, it became clear that the market had arrived. Enough people had smartphones. Services like Uber existed where people kind of got this idea that this smartphone isn't just about a telephone, it's about a remote control for buying things in the world around me. And so the moment really arrived, and restaurant brands were launching apps and thinking about, how do they capitalize on this technology revolution? And I just knew we had to step on the gas. We'd gotten to profitability with a small and scrappy team, but we needed to step on the gas and switch from kind of profitability mode into growth mode and capture the market. So from that moment in August of 2013 until our IPO in March of 2021, we scaled from 12 employees to over 600 employees. It was just a time of radical growth in the company, working with larger and larger restaurant brands as their platform and the platform that connected them to their guests.
Yeah.
And then a little over 4 years ago, on March 17th, 2021, after battling through with the entire industry and all of our customers, the moment that was COVID, we were able to take the company public on the New York Stock Exchange. And poetically, that was about a block away from where I lived on Wall Street when I first had that idea.
That is wild. In question, do you attribute some of the visibility and interest in what you were doing to your location on Wall Street as you're working there and operating there? I imagine the stockbrokers are walking by, the people that are in the mix are in the know. Was there any cross-pollination there?
I think really in the way that I mentioned that it was this crazy, just every morning mosh pit of people trying to get coffee at the same time. I mean, that was not unique to Wall Street, but certainly a pronounced thing, on weekdays on Wall Street, that you would have people who lived, people who worked, all coming and descending on that area and that one coffee shop. And so I think that was the thing that environmentally kind of predisposed me to, this is a problem that has to get solved.
That was your flux capacitor moment for a Back to the Future reference, right? It was just, I came up with time travel.
Exactly.
That's absolutely amazing. And so you've built, so you had a radical change. You went from a small company, and most companies go from small, then they hit that 50 mark and they start feeling that friction. You blew right past that.
Yeah. I mean, I skipped over a lot.
Kind of change. Yeah. That's wild, right? Like
it was. Yeah, it was a wild time. And of course, during that time, we went from being a single module company, as we would now say it, in our ordering platform, into bolting on additional modules. By the time that we went public in March of 21, we had really 3 modules. We had the order platform, which was mainly for order ahead and pick up at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And then we added first a module called Dispatch, which enables restaurant brands to take first party orders, but offer guests to have that order delivered to them. And we do that by working with a network of delivery service provider partners who collect the order and then deliver it to the guest. And then we launched a marketplace enablement module called Rails, which would enable restaurant brands to list their menu and give access to restaurant delivery marketplaces like DoorDash and Uber Eats. And I think the first one we went live with was Amazon Restaurants, and that was in 2017. So we evolved a lot up until that IPO moment, but it's been radical. Like since then, we went from 3 modules up to now 16 modules in the last 4 years.
And it's a mix of M&A and developed, or what does that comprise, or some highlights there?
Yeah. Well, I think really in expanding into 2 major product suites that we weren't in at the time of the IPO. The first was developing payments as a capability we call Olo Pay. That was built in-house on top of both Stripe and Adyen, and now Freedom Pay as part of our payments partnerships. And then we acquired a company in Wisely, which became the Olo Engage suite of product modules. Across all of those, Order, Pay, and Engage, we now have 16. I think Wisely alone was probably around 5 of those 16. So it was a mix of R&D and M&A, which we were able to do for the first time after a very successful IPO. And those 3 product suites together really make up what we call the Olo guest data flywheel, because we identified really back in 2014 that while the digital transformation of our industry was happening, digital ordering was a really interesting business, and it had this great co-product of throwing off a lot of very valuable guest data, and that could become kind of a second opportunity for Olo to go and pursue. A lot of credit goes to one of our board members who joined our board and invested in the company at that time, Danny Meyer of Shake Shack fame. Yeah, but he said, I have seen that connecting the dots in this industry is really what hospitality is all about. And I learned to love the open table platform at Union Square Cafe and elsewhere because of that ability to not just take reservations, but collect dots about the guest and understand who they are, know that guest and make them feel known. And I believe that Olo has an even bigger opportunity to do that same thing. There's so much value in this guest data of all of these transactions that are running through the platform tied back to the guests that can educate our stores, our GMs, our teams on who that guest is and how to make them feel known, like the restaurant is on their side and wants to personalize their experience.
Is Olo considered a CDP then? In that case, you are the CDP?
That's right. So the foundation of Wisely is a CDP. We call it a GDP to differentiate between sort of horizontal customer data platforms. We think in this industry of guests, so a guest data platform. And that is really the core asset of Wisely that we acquired was let's pull all of this data linked back to guests into a guest data platform. And then let's derive insights from all that data and then take action by being able to market to those guests and personalize their experience based on all the things that we know about them.
Noah, recently you had your Beyond 4 conference, and I'm sure you were talking either from the stage or just talking with your customers, some of the use cases and examples of the type of insights that could lead to wow guest experiences. What are some of those use cases that kind of come to top of mind that excited people the most?
I mean, some of it is like very basic and boring stuff. And I'll give you an example. I mean, this was an idea that I borrowed from one of our brand speakers, Justine from Bar Taco. But she was talking about there are so many guests in our database that used to be big fans and then for whatever reason stopped coming. And it would be amazing to identify those guests who are the high lifetime value guests of Bar Taco and give them some sort of email reach out if we have their permission to do so, or text message or in-app reach out, and offer them something to come back. And we just had an all hands meeting yesterday. We were looking at some of the new things that we're building. And I was saying, so many brands of ours have this huge cohort of kind of zombie guests. And wouldn't it be cool if we could put together a way for them to resurrect those zombies? And so that's become a little bit of a meme over the past 24 hours of Noah wants to resurrect zombies. But it's a real thing. There's so many valuable guests out there who we know are drawn to specific brands. And for whatever random reason, they kind of fall off. Sometimes that is some sort of service issue or a bad experience, but winning those guests back over and getting them back in the door, I think about it so much of, we have a kind of a marketing component of this industry is so focused on driving new guests in the top of the funnel. And I think they need to be, I would argue, even more focused on making sure you don't have a leaky bottom of the funnel and you're keeping these guests loyal to the brand and coming back to the brand and ideally growing that relationship. But just little ideas like, let's go talk to all of these guests who have given us permission to talk to them and haven't been in for some period of time and get them to come back and maybe give them something free in order to come back. Free is a very powerful concept for restaurants to deploy.
Yeah. I like to ask everybody that's a tech leader, some variation of this question, but you have so many ways ideas are hitting you guys. Your own internal team is going to be thinking about, hey, this is something we could do. Your customers are going to have feedback for you. Your partners are going to have feedback for you. But you can only execute so much from a product roadmap. How do you guys decide what to build and what to build next?
It is the ultimate question, really, in any size organization. I mean, we are lucky to be able to invest $90 million annually in research and development. It's a huge amount of money. It enables us to do a lot of things. Still, there are tons of things that hit the cutting room floor that we are not able to do. We have an incredible organization called our Product Advisory Council that's been around really since 2014. And without a doubt, the best ideas come out of those conversations. It's made up of not, the customers that do the highest order volume necessarily, but it's sort of the forward-thinking, forward-leaning digital thinkers and innovators in our customer base. And what I always encourage, I always say to them, like, these conversations, these are my happy place. I love sitting in between, sort of hearing the problem statements of the things that you are struggling with, and then together coming up with a solution. And I say that because it's better always when somebody comes up with when somebody comes to you with like a raw problem statement, and together you can think through the solution instead of having like this prescribed, here's what I need you to build. And sometimes the solution is something that it's hard to see from inside the four walls of one brand. But from our vantage point now with 750 brands, we can see these things that are, in the Henry Ford sense, not faster horses, but the car.
Yeah.
And solves the problem of getting you from point A to point B much faster, but it's a different solution than you would have had just thinking about, so I need it to go faster. I need this horse to run faster. So I love those conversations as an opportunity for us to get a lot of inspiration. We also have a rule at Olo when we sort of get down to what are we going to build, what are we not going to build for the year, for the quarter, whatever it is. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. It is a very binary thing. If we're not all like, we got to do this thing because it's the great, it hits the cutting room floor. Like mercilessly, that's a rule that we have in every one of these sessions when our team is actually figuring out what we're going to go and build. And that is so important. There is nothing worse than saying yes to everything and then disappointing everyone because you do everything in a half-assed way. Much, much better to be concentrated on a couple of big bets and really deliver on those things.
You're speaking Chad's language. We have this conversation all the time. I bring ideas like, can we just stay on path? We're doing some good stuff. I have a question about that. Like in ideation, right? Like that's a jam session. That's a great place. And I can see why you love it because nobody's calling you. There's no other demands. It's now, and I get to be creative and flow and have all these ideas coming in that I can sort through. How do you set the stage for that? I think sometimes you see people say, hey, let's have a jam session. One personality dominates it. It's not really a jam session. How do you moderate? How's that? Because this is, I think, is useful information to people listening. Like how do you set up a good collaboration in that sense? Is it a Google brief first? Is it like, how do you do that?
Yeah, we have first like a very well curated group. again, it's by invitation only who we invite to be in that session.
Yep.
And we do kind of curate that group every year. We don't keep that group static. We add some people. We maybe say thank you to some people, but you're not going to be in next year's group. So it starts there, and then we have kind of two different variants of product advisory council sessions. We have some where we have an agenda and we have pre-reads, and people kind of come in knowing what we want to talk about, having opinions formed. And then we have some like the one that we just had at our customer conference Beyond 4, where it's just kind of like an open jam session, truly. And it's like, what's on your mind? What are the things that you are having problems with, or where you see opportunity? Let's talk through it as a group.
Yeah.
Both are really fun. I'm always proud when we're like showing off things that we've started to build and getting feedback on those things.
Yeah.
Honestly, I like the open jam sessions even more. And I say it's my happy place. I learned this Japanese word recently that I think kind of perfectly encapsulates kind of the way I feel in those meetings. And the word is ikigai.
Oh, all day.
Okay.
Intersection all day. Yep.
Yes. It is like the thing that makes me happy. It's the thing that I'm good at. It's the thing that the world needs, or our
The thing you make money at, right?
the
Like
thing
all
we
those
can
things.
make money doing.
Yeah.
Like that is the perfect time in those sessions, the product advisory council sessions, and also just in an executive business review, where I feel sort of most mission driven and purposeful, and my team feels that way. Like we just get to geek out about restaurant technology and what's going to up level hospitality if we do it, and that is so fun. So
anything's possible in that room.
yeah,
Right?
I mean, we have some zany ideas in that room, and I'm sometimes the one who's stirring the pot and asking questions that are out of people's comfort zone. It's sort of a safe space to talk about really innovative ideas, and maybe sometimes it's things that people want Olo to do that really doesn't feel like the thing that we should be doing, but it pushes our thinking. And then we revisit that as a team when we go back to our office and think about like, people seem to really be wanting this thing. Maybe we should think differently about, where we're ultimately heading. It wasn't something we would have come up with, but we have some permission now based on what we heard.
Yeah. No, every company has to decide between scalability, or find the balance between scalability and customization. I'm curious where you guys are on that, and if you see that balance shifting over the next few years.
I think this is a great statement and question. And it's something that when we knew we were going to become a platform for really more than one brand, but a platform that people could build on top of and really choose their own adventure, we committed to being, number one, a reliable platform that could scale to your scalability point, and two, being an open platform that was extensible, and one that was API first and put everything into the API before the product itself so that people could build on top of it. And truly, like, those are the principles that we have lived by. We are now operating at a tremendous scale, and a big focus of ours has always been reliability at scale. We have a status page. You can go to status.olo.com and you can see at any given moment our platform and the different subsystems of it, their uptime stats, and you can see all of our partners as well. And really the partners are the other part of it, being an open platform. And that is one of the things that I am most proud of in terms of Olo's legacy in this industry. Is when we came into this space, when we made that switch in 2009, 2010, of being a platform for brands to build on top of, and we had to integrate into point of sale systems, we encountered a very kind of walled garden, closed approach to technology. And it was a lot of technical work to break through that. And even before that, was a lot of political work to break through that and get the point of sale companies to say, yes, you can plug into us. And it took a lot of brand advocacy in order for us to break down those walls. So when we thought about scaling our platform, we said, we want to be the antithesis of that. We don't want to be a closed platform. We want to be an open platform. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. We want partners to build through Olo into the point of sale and otherwise. And if a restaurant brand doesn't see their chosen technology partner on that list of partners, we want to make it really easy for a new partner to get integrated in. And if a restaurant brand wants to build on its own, we want them to be able to build on their own. But we fundamentally want to be a scalable, reliable platform and one that is open. And I'm really proud we now have over 400 integrated technology partners who have either integrated into us or who we have integrated into. And I think that's fundamental for enterprise technology of all kinds, because you need to, because reliability is absolutely essential. But you also, there is no one size fits all best of breed approach. Restaurants are very different when you really get down to it. They all look the same from a high enough level of generality, but they have different tech stack needs. And so being extensible, and I think of it as with an 8-year-old, Lego bricks, and being able to stack the Lego bricks together in the way that you want to build the thing you want to build, having 400 options to go and pick from, and being able to add number 401 if they're not available to you. Like that is what an enterprise restaurant CIO needs, not somebody who says, I can give you everything in one package and it's exactly the way that you want. That best of breeds or doesn't exist. It's really about best fit for each brand.
Right. I mean, the idea of the businesses that are platforming, like PAR and 365, and we could say the Olo is platforming as well. M&A is rife right now. It seems like the future is a lot more M&A coming up. One of the questions I know people listening would love the answer to, and I don't know if you can give it to me. I know a lot of people are building to sell, right? And so if they're building products to sell, I don't know if that's the right philosophy. I'd rather build to solve a solution than if I sell some stuff later, that's great. But if they're saying, I want to be bought by somebody like an Olo, what are the techs, what kind of things are you looking for in the marketplace today that would be an interesting M&A? And if you can't talk about it, that's fine, but I just figured I'd ask.
No, I mean, it's a question that we get from investors all the time of how we think about M&A. I guess to take a step back, we look at sort of a 3-year product roadmap, and we do this exercise as a team, and then with our board as well. We kind of chart out, here's what we want to go and build in the next 3 years. Anytime you do that, the next year is the most actionable, and the years 2 and 3 are a little bit crystal ball, and those get refined obviously later. But in that next year, you look at, okay, here are the things, here are the investments we're making to go and build from an R&D perspective. Again, $90 million of R&D that we're investing in the business. So how do we portion that out? And then we think, are there M&A opportunities that we could pursue that would enable us to go further faster? And that's really how we think about it. It's R&D and M&A under that same lens of where we want to take the product. It is really an awesome thing to have 400 partners and the common customers that can give us insights into what solutions they're finding a lot of value in. And that is exactly what led to our very first acquisition of Wisely in November of 2021, was hearing from common customers, this is really a game changer. It enables me to understand my business at the guest level. And that is a really powerful new frame to look at my entire business through, understanding who my best guests are, understanding what menu items they order, what servers they engage with, what locations they come to. That's going to change the way I think about the business, instead of looking at kind of store economics, getting down to guest economics. And that really was a paradigm shift for us that a lot really lined up with that Danny Meyer moment of connecting the dots that all connect back to the guest. And we said that this is the thing that we need to take on as the next leg of growth. And it would take us a really long time to build what they've built. It would be a much faster path to getting to this higher ground if we came together as one company.
Yeah. No, when you started, I don't know what the percentage of digital transactions for a typical restaurant would have been then. But now you've got to be near 100% for some of your customers, or most of them. You can talk about that evolution, or how that has gone from the macro standpoint, and what that indicates for where you guys are going to go in the future.
Yes, it was not zero when we started, but probably pretty close to it. I mean, you had a lot of pizza brands that were getting into digital: Domino's, Pizza Hut, Papa John's. The term OLO, online ordering, is where our name comes from. That term was around before Olo had that URL and was this company. And it sort of dates it interestingly because it's the same era of America Online when online was two different words, OL, instead of now we just say online. That's just a no. But so it was not that it was at zero when we started, but I can tell you when COVID hit, and of course this is now like 15 years into our journey, the industry was at 8% digital and had climbed steadily from close to zero when we started. COVID was a huge accelerant, obviously. We all know that. If you didn't have a drive-through, then digital really became your lifeline for
it forced it.
Business.
Yeah.
So it took us from 8% digital as an industry up to 16%. And we went public as a company in March of 21 after that big COVID year. Big year of growth for us, effectively a doubling of our revenue, along with that doubling in the percentage of transactions. And a lot of investors were skeptical and said, like, well, now that COVID's passed or passing, isn't it just going to go back down to 8%? And we said, well, it has shown to be very durable. These are consumer behavior change things. People are now used to ordering in this way. We think it's going to stay at 16%. And it did. It stayed at 16% for some time. Now, the last data that I saw from Circana had us at 18%. So we're above COVID levels as an industry. Now, to your point, Chad, mileage varies dramatically brand by brand. We have brands that are 100% digital. I would point to brands like Honeygrow as a shining example of 100% digital. And the reason for that is that there is no going into the restaurant and ordering from a cashier. Right. You're going into the restaurant, you're ordering from a kiosk, or you're ordering pickup or delivery through their digital experience. All of that, both the offline and the online, is powered by Olo. So all of the digital ordering is happening through our platform. And also all the payments are going through our platform. So they are like one of the very first to get to 100% digital. You look at brands like Shake Shack. Shake Shack also has a great kiosk experience. I think kiosk has been a big accelerant of the digital mix for a lot of the restaurants that we work with.
Yep.
And at the same time, I've been saying we are focused at Olo on this moment in time when we as an industry get to 100% digital, and more brands are focused on getting to 100% digital. We announced something in early February, a little over 2 months ago, that I think jump cuts us to that moment of 100% digital. It's not that every transaction is being placed through a digital channel, but we are now doing Olo Pay not just for digital orders, but also for in-restaurant orders. So the other 82% that are not the 18% that are digital. And the way that we're doing that is through direct POS partnerships with Adyen, and now a partnership with Stripe and Freedom Pay that enables us to be the processor for those in-restaurant transactions. That could be drive-through, that could be counter pickup, that could be kiosk, any place that you're paying inside the four walls of the restaurant. And on those transactions, importantly, we're able to get the ticket data. And we're able to get the guest data based on the payment account reference. Why that matters is for the first time, those non-digital transactions, we can pull into the guest data platform and we can see every item that's been ordered, all of the modifications that have been made. So truly ingredient level detail, all tied back to a guest. So it effectively makes those bulk of transactions, the 82%, as rich from a data perspective as a digital transaction. And so at our customer conference, I was saying to our customers, we have arrived now. We're at this 100% digital moment where even if guests are still ordering in a traditional way, if they're paying using Olo Pay in store, that digital transaction, that too is something that we can tie back to that guest profile and understand who that guest is, what they order, how they modify each order. We can then start to do things that we've seen as consumers in our experiences with Spotify and Netflix and other services where we get recommendations that are based on lookalike guests. So instead of just saying, do you want fries and a drink? Maybe there is a better thing to say to me based on what I'm ordering and what other people like me add to an order that looks like my order. That's the kind of personalization and data-driven recommendation work that we're doing on cross-sell and upsell, but also on what are we trying to get you into the restaurant to try that you've never tried before, but that we know that people like you also love. And ideally, we create this new craving where you're saying, I want to come and get something else at this restaurant. I'm going to up my frequency overall because I now have product A and product B that I crave. And that's going to make me a more loyal guest and drive profitable traffic from me as I deepen my relationship with your brand.
So you mentioned something before that I think is really significant. You were talking about the customer that went away, right? And my grandma used to say, it's not how much you can catch, how much you can keep, right? That's important. And I believe it's true. I think so. So Olo has to have some sort of sentiment platform, some guest engagement, retention, recovery solution, right? And with the advent of AI being so strong as it is, that used to be a human function. A manager would have to respond. Time was a big problem there because the response between that flare and when they get out the door and who they tell and all the fun things that happen. Tell us a little bit about how you're leveraging this buzzword that people are talking about in these areas where it's really so important to not just miss the detail, but not miss the moment.
Yeah. Well, this was really when I was asked sort of what's the vision for Olo's next 20 years, the thing that I centered on. It's the first 20 years were about meeting the guest where they are. The next 20 years are going to be about knowing the guest and making them feel known. And the vision that I laid out for where we're headed is something that I called guest experience management, or GXM. And I think about that as the tools that enable exactly what you just said in the moment for a manager or a server to intervene and make it right.
Right.
So if you are one of my loyal guests and you've been coming for years and you have a bad experience and I can sense that in some way and take action to make it up to you in the moment, that is where hospitality really happens, is the recovery from some bad experience like that and how you handle it. So I think that's very hard for enterprise restaurant brands to do at scale. But I think our mission is really to enable, we sort of use this as our mission as a company, and it's our new tagline of hospitality at scale.
Right.
How do you sort of capture that moment so that you can make sure that you're taking care of that guest and building a customer for life or a guest for life in that moment? And I can also see different sources of data that we're able to collect beyond the traditional of what I just said, their transaction history and emails they've clicked on. I think we're living in a world where guests are giving more and more permission to brands that they love or services that they love to read even more data. And I think that can include in the future, real-time data about what's going on. So as an example, I'm wearing a Whoop. This is right now tracking my heart rate. It tracks how well I slept last night, how well I recovered from my workout yesterday. I use my Fitness Pal and I track the different sort of inputs that I've had from a macro perspective. So wouldn't it be cool if all of that data with a guest permission was able to get shared with a restaurant? The restaurant could react in real time with an even better recommendation that wasn't just for that person, but that person right now. I think that sort of journey is what a data-driven restaurant industry will start to look like. And I think providing the tools to make it possible to join that very human craft of hospitality with the power of AI and machine learning and the big data that we sit on top of is really the intersection that we want to live at. Or as Danny Meyer again would say, we want to sit on that 50-yard line in between hospitality and that kind of technology. And I think that is really coming to exist. And I think the other big goal for us is, how do we do this in a way that is not requiring massive retraining of the people in our industry, but how do we do this in a way that is totally in the background and just feels like a massive easy button for up-leveling hospitality on the front lines at the restaurant? That is truly our mission and what we're driving towards.
That's awesome.
So hospitality is a people business, and you're thinking about how you help the customer with their customer. Bring it in, right, to your own people, right? How do you drive culture in an organization, especially since going public? It has to have become increasingly challenged.
And it's got to be more than just words on a wall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super proud of the retention of our customers. I'm similarly super proud of the retention of our team. So we very much subscribe to the enlightened hospitality principles that the team comes first, and after the team, our customers, our community, our partners. And if we do all those things right, it'll make for a really great outcome for investors. So we have a lot of really long tenured people at Olo, some of whom have been with me for the better part of that 20-year journey. We have folks who've been in Olo for 19 plus years.
Wow.
Obviously, I'm one of them, but it is, I think that's a part of the culture too, that like, it is a founder-led company, and I'm not a founder who feels like, okay, we did it. We IPO'd, it's over now, on to the next thing.
Right.
If anything, I'm more energetic and feeling more mission driven and more of kind of a connection to what we do now than I was in the early days. I said it at our customer conference, we have been climbing for a long time, but we are not at the summit. We're at base camp. And you get to base camp and you look up at the summit.
There's so much more to go, right?
I always say to the team, I feel so grateful for having climbed all the way that we have with this great ecosystem around us.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm so unsatisfied because there's so much further to go. So that's become something of a mantra at Olo of grateful and unsatisfied. And I think, again, we're curating a team that feels a deep passion for this industry and feels about helping restaurants deliver on hospitality with, a real sort of mission and purpose and almost a spirituality to it. Like we love hospitality. We want to be a force multiplier for it. The world needs it really desperately. This is a special industry that needs whatever help it can get. And if we can be part of that help, that is really a noble cause and something that we want to devote our time and our wisdom and our talents to. And I think that kind of purpose-driven culture is a huge part of Olo, certainly now, and really all along the way over these past 20 years.
Noah, we could talk to you all day. And I hope you had enough fun here that we can invite you back, because there is so much more to dig into.
Yeah, let's do it.
The thing that echoed before we end here is you talk about restaurants in the way that hotels talk about their guests, right? That extreme customization, the room temperature, the experience, the hello, Mr. Glass, welcome to our be our guest, that experience. I think that is kind of the North Star for what we want to do inside of restaurants, is treat that guest so special that they feel like they came home.
Yeah.
I love that you embody that. So as we close out, I usually like to open the door and see, for people that want to run into you, see you speak, or if you're going to be somewhere, what are the next places you're going to show up at?
I feel like I'm going to be at a million restaurant conferences, sadly not at the Restaurant Leadership Conference next week. But I hear that the people running the podcast booth are going to be on top of it. So go and talk to them.
Yes.
But no, I'm at pretty much every big restaurant conference that there is. RLC is one exception. I'm online as everybody is, but on LinkedIn very actively, and people can find me there. And I love engaging with hospitality people, be they inside of a brand or a hospitality technology platform. I love that this is a group sport that we're all in together. And if we can up-level hospitality as an ecosystem, that is something to be proud of.
We all win, right?
Yep.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, Noah, thank you so much. Chad, I don't know if you have anything you want to close up with, but I mean, this has been absolutely awesome.
It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Noah.
Noah, thank you. I'm planting a seed. When's your book coming out?
I'm too busy. I'm too busy living to write, but at some point,
there'll be a memoir one day.
Could perhaps.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much. We wish you nothing but continued success, and we know that more great stuff's going to be coming out of Olo. We look forward to meeting all your great executives as you put them in the field and getting to know them too. Everybody, this is Noah Glass. This is Olo. If you don't know him, I don't know what rock you've been under, but maybe you take a look. Noah, thank you so much. It's a sincere honor.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Chad.
Until next time, sir.
Everybody, this has been the ChatGTM podcast. Our guest, Noah Glass, my co-host, Chad Horn, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.